Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel media personality and writer Christine Hamilton, and also political commentator and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Right, so we've talked a lot about working from home, haven't we? But it seems that those who are working from home, obviously a lot of them white-collar workers, so they're not necessarily manual labourers or people who have to be in the office like midwives and things like that. But it seems that although a lot of people have said good things about it, that in fact it's actually pushing the prices of the local places that these commuters are moving to, pushing prices up. Local people can't afford it, and that there is now a vision that perhaps it's not such a good thing. What do you think, Christine?
Well, personally, I love working from home, of course. But it requires a degree of self-discipline. And my whole working life, I spent a lot of time working from home, in fact, decades ago, before it was fashionable. And a lot of people just don't have that discipline, and I couldn't have agreed with you more. I mean, the hours that we have all spent hanging onto the phone waiting for somebody, and what I think a lot of people don't realise is that if they make it obvious to their employers that they can work from home, that the employers don't have to see them, they don't have to come into the office. Next thing that will happen is that job will be exported to goodness knows where, to India or heaven knows where. So they are in danger of folding up the jobs that they've got. Is it pushing up house prices? I hadn't actually thought about that, but yes, it probably is. But I wouldn't have thought that was a massive impact.
Well, it would
I'd like
be.
to see the figures, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a study by the ONS, and the thing is, if you say, you know, you've moved out to a lovely sort of place in the village, somewhere nice, and there's all, you know, the locals are there and all that, but then a lot of people from the cities are doing that, and a lot of them have got quite a bit of money. You sell your property in the city, you can get threefold of what you would there. Suddenly you're in it, and then more people start doing it. It pushes the prices up, and the indigenous population is struggling to actually afford their own homes. What do you think, Albie?
But I mean, ultimately, the issue with house prices and the housing crisis is to do with the fact that we're not building enough homes. That's a separate conversation. It's been covered many times this week. But on the issue of working from home, I'm actually a big supporter of working from home if the employees can prove that they are being as productive at home as they would be in the office. Now, in the case of these call centre workers, obviously that's not been the case for you, waiting an hour and 37 minutes to get a service is absolutely appalling. But it has also brought a lot of benefits to people. People's work-life balance are better, they're spending more time with their family. And actually, for some people, they're actually more productive at home. A lot of the fastest-growing companies in the world, tech companies, for example, have had flexible working for decades. Facebook, Google, Twitter. You know, working from home is very common.
Yeah, but I'm not completely opposed to it. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the way it's sort of panned out in this country, I mean, have you tried the passport office? Have you tried the DVLA? I mean, it's just a joke. And if you're trying to get child maintenance services or any of the government bodies in particular, there seems to be a very sort of lethargic approach to it.
Sorry.
Yes. I think this is also an issue of, you know, sort of the differences between public sector and private sector. In the private sector, businesses in general are just more efficient than when things are done through the government, so that could be an issue. But I do not think that all of a sudden the passport office delays will be solved if everyone suddenly goes back into the office. That is a problem of staffing. They've let go of a lot of people. There's a lot of reform that needs to happen in the public sector to make it as productive as the private sector, and working from home isn't a silver bullet.
But I know people who would actually admit that it's actually less productive. I mean, I spoke to one of my friends and I said, what do you think? Is it, I asked her, I said, well, look, for you, is it more productive working from home? And there was a pause. And she went, nah, because she knows that she's there, she's not as disciplined. She says, sometimes I work a bit later, but or more sort of inappropriate hours than if I were in the office, but she doesn't believe she's more productive.
No, well, that's an example of what I said earlier, that you have to be self-disciplined to work at home as efficiently as you would do. And yes, if you don't start work till 10 o'clock, then you work on in the evening. But some jobs lend themselves to working from home, as you say, these young start-up companies and all these young kids, etc. They have a different work ethic, I think, to a lot of people in the civil service. You know, they've got a job for life, a lot of them, a nice fat pension coming along, and there's no need for them to work hard. They're not judged on their productivity. They can, too many of them can just... I'm not dissing the entire civil service, by the way, before everybody comes down on me on for that, but too many of them just plod along, and there's nobody actually marking their homework properly.
I've dissed the civil service for that. I've had enough of it.
Not all of them. You can't diss them all.
Well, a lot of them, and you know, because I'm trying to get my daughter's passport renewed so that she can go on the buses for free because she's of the age where it's free. Do you know, it's been about 4 months now So in the end, I'm actually going to have to write to them and say, look, I actually want my money back from these transport companies that I'm having to pay for her to get on the bus because we can't get the passport to prove that she's of the age, so therefore I'm spending money.
Oh, so you need the passport.
You need the passport to prove that she's of the age, so that you have to send a copy of the passport. So because you can't get that, then I end up paying more, paying the bus fare there and back every day for the last how many months.
That's actually a good case for trying for a refund. Yeah, try it after.
I will give it a go. I'll let you know how I get on. I mean, there's a passport office, they're taking ages, and that's an example of where a lot of people are working from home. I take your point that they are, experiencing low staffing levels, but for those who are working, I don't believe they're working very hard at all. I know what I'm like. I know what I'm like.
It all comes down to your own personal work ethic, doesn't it?
I clean the toilet rather than actually do any work. That's the way I think. But what do you think? You get in touch with us. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV. Good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now we return to our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should royals weigh in on immigration policy? Now, it's been reported in today's newspaper that Prince Charles privately described the government's policies to send migrants to Rwanda as appalling. His alleged comments came after a legal challenge against deporting asylum seekers to the Central African country were rejected by the High Court. The first flight to send migrants to Rwanda could leave on Tuesday. An appeal against the ruling has been launched. So today I'm asking, should royals weigh in on immigration policy? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by media personality and political commentator Christine Hamilton and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Let's start with you, Albie. What do you think then? Come on. Should Prince Charles is speaking, saying, he said it to a friend, so we'll caveat that it might not be true, but they do have a habit of leaking things that are true, and every paper is covering it. So
yes, they do have a habit of leaking things. And one of the things that I found really interesting when I was reading this exclusive in the Times this morning is that I got a bit of a sense of déjà vu, because in 1986, the Times published a headline which said, "Queen dismayed by uncaring Thatcher." And that was a leak from the palace, from a private conversation. And it actually led to the sacking of the then press secretary, I think, Michael Shane. It's actually serialised in The Crown really beautifully. So it seemed to me like a very...
It must be true.
But nonetheless, this did happen. You may remember it, Christine.
I do.
But it seemed to me like maybe something similar had happened, and perhaps there was a private conversation between the Prince of Wales and one of his aides, or perhaps another member of the royal family, and perhaps it was leaked on purpose.
OK, so it being leaked on purpose, in your view, is this the sort of thing that he should be getting involved in particular? He's going to Rwanda, so, it's a bit unsavoury of him to sort of diss it when...
I think it's wrong for members of the royal family to be commenting on, issues of the government. That is the whole point of having this constitutional monarchy that we have. And so when things like this happen, it makes the government look bad, it makes the royal family look bad. Essentially, it makes the British state look like it's dysfunctional. And I don't think it's right to be having the royal family commenting on issues of the government, and especially hot-button issues like immigration.
Christine?
100% agree with that. I mean, the royal family should not meddle publicly in political matters. Now, the question of whether he did it deliberately or not, who knows? If he did do it deliberately, then frankly that's even worse, because he is deliberately putting himself out there, getting involved in what is a really controversial hot potato. And he said when he did an interview for his 60th birthday with one of the Dimblebys, I think it was, and he said, I am not that stupid. In other words, to get involved with political... Here he is wading in. If it was accidental, and somebody has done, shame on whoever leaked it, but I think it would be great to know that. But, he can't have his cake and eat it, and nor can any of them. I mean, Harry wanted his cake and eat it, and he was told, no, you can't. If you don't want to be part of the royal family, off you go. So he's gone. I mean, Prince William got involved on the slavery issue. Now, he's not... yet the king, he's the Prince of Wales in waiting, but he shouldn't have got involved in that. These are really hot political issues, and the Queen for 70 years has been spectacularly successful at keeping her mouth shut on these issues and not putting her foot in it. But she, of course, had the Prince Philip to do it for her, you know, all his wonderful gaffes. He had a word for it. He called it pedodontology. I think that's right. Foot in mouth, pedodontology. But no, I think it's a very, very slippery slope, and it must be very difficult for him because he does feel passionately, and I understand him wanting to say things, and of course he's going to say things privately. It must be very, very difficult. But if we are to continue, if this monarchy is to continue as successfully under him as it has been under his mother, he has got to learn not to say these things.
Well, it's all right for him, though, in his opulent palaces. I mean, you know, there's no point. I mean, you're in your palace. They're never going to be next door to your house. And he's making comments like that as if there's something wrong with Rwanda, which is part of the Commonwealth in any case.
Well,
so I kind of think it's a bit...
Well, I think what I think a lot of people didn't realise, and I didn't realise this until recently, is that people think of Rwanda and they think of it as a poor country.
Exactly,
and
it's not.
Photographs that they see give the wrong impression. These people who are sent there, they're going to be put up, if they're lucky, some of them, in a 3-star hotel with a swimming pool, a golf course, etc., etc., etc. They're not going to be in a mud hut somewhere. You know, they're going to have much better facilities than a lot have got them here, and certainly a lot better than many people in this country enjoy. So I think one has to get it in perspective. But, of course, there are two issues. One is, should they be sent to Rwanda? And the second is, should Prince Charles involve himself? And on the second, no.
I think, to be honest, I think it's slightly racist, if I'm honest, that people are complaining that Rwanda is such a terrible place. You know, because to me, I'm like, well, what's wrong with it? You know, I know they might not be as tolerant as this country on certain issues, but it is quite an up-and-coming place. And the reason why it was used as a deterrent was simply to make people think, well, if you're coming to one place, you're not going to end up in the place that you've come to. I mean, if they'd said Bermuda, I think people would be coming here even more, wouldn't they? I mean, Bermuda's great.
I think I would question whether or not it's working, though, because there were a couple of days where there were no migrant crossings after the announcement was made, and you had some commentators saying, oh, it's working. But, of course, the migrants are still crossing the channel. And it is, I initially said I thought it was quite an extreme deterrent, but I think we just have to see if it works. And I think the evidence at the moment is pointing towards the fact that it's not working.
Well, hang on, nobody's gone there yet.
Nobody's gone there.
I think it's far too early to say whether it is. It worked for Australia. Their similar policy worked brilliantly. They sent them to Papua New Guinea, I think.
Which is quite a nice place, to be honest.
But that really worked for Australia. But I think it's too early to say whether it's working.
And how can you say
it hasn't happened yet?
How can you say it's... Listen, the reason, if it doesn't work, it will be because of this ridiculous level of legal challenges that people can make. People aren't convinced that even if it's a working policy, that it will be able to be effective. You know,
98% of people who come, illegal immigrants come, or economic migrants, whatever you want to call them, come without any passports or travel documents. Now, I don't believe that 98% simply don't have them. They have destroyed them.
Of course
so it makes it that much more difficult to prove who they are. And it's Tony Blair brought in making that an offence. But, I mean, about 2 people, I think, have been prosecuted for it.
Albie?
Look, I'm open to seeing how this policy pans out, but since it's been announced, it's not actually really stopped migrants from crossing the channel. And the point is that it's a deterrent to stop people from wanting to cross in the first place. So even just the announcement of it and the threat of being sent back at some point in the future should really be enough to prove whether or not the policy works.
No.
And unfortunately, it's not stopped the flow of migrants across the channel.
Well, we keep shooting ourselves in the foot, don't we? We come up with something that's probably quite a good idea, and then we have a load of illegal eagles who probably would not have migrants next door to their home, but they're defending the whole issue and different appeals.
But that's been overturned, hasn't it? So that legal challenge has been stopped. So
no, they can do it, but they're limited to the number of times, I think it is, so you can only have 3 challenges or something like that. There's a limit now in the Nationality and Borders Bill. Let's just quickly find out what GB Voice says, because this show's nothing without you. Let's welcome our great British voice to the show, their opportunity to tell us what they think, and yours too, on the topics we're discussing. Should we go to... Let's go to Gillingham. Let's go to Kent. Let's have a chat with Neil. Neil. All right, Neil, what do you think then? Prince Charles, he's interfering, he's coming up with... You know, what should he be doing that?
I think it's sad that in private he's had a conversation and that someone's then passed that information on. I mean, I deal with people who struggle with the cost of living, so whether someone sold that story on to try and make themselves a few quid, it's a bit harsh. The guy's going to have an opinion. It's not as if he's gone on national TV and said it. He's had a private conversation with a friend or an aide, or we think, and that's been made public, which I think is very sad. I think everyone's going to have an opinion, whoever they are, whether it's royalty. We've all got an opinion on what's going to happen with Rwanda. I've been to Calais myself, to the camps out there, and the conditions are appalling. So I think it is harsh what they deal with out there, and these people are not getting in boats for no reason. It's very sad, and as your colleagues were saying there about this information getting to them, how are they getting this information when they're in these camps in Calais? They've hardly all got smartphones and the internet.
Well,
they're living in dreadful conditions.
No. OK, so the camps are obviously... then France should be looking at the conditions of the camps, because that's not on. But they do have phones, and a lot of them chuck them over the side of the thing when they come through so that you can't identify them. I mean, we've seen that happen. But that's not to say that, you know, that migrants are not welcome in this country. It's just that the mode with which they're coming across is really... We need to stop it, because it's dangerous, frankly, and money is going to the pockets of smugglers. But if we come back to Prince Charles, just very briefly before I go back to my panel... So sometimes the royal family do have a habit of leaking things deliberately. If that is the premise, and he's done that, what is your view then?
I think they're still going to have conversations. What do these guys talk about? They're not allowed to talk about politics. They're not allowed to talk about... What can they talk about?
My question is...
There's only so much they can do.
But Neil, what I'm saying is, if it is leaked deliberately, if this has been leaked deliberately, so that the government, so that it interferes with the policy, do you think that the royals should be getting involved in that way?
No, I think publicly they shouldn't be. But if this is this deliberate, or is this just someone who sold a story? If someone's got access to that kind of information and they can make themselves a few pound, has it been done for that, or is this a deliberate? I mean, I don't think Prince Charles is probably that stupid to to do something like this.
But they might do. They might do. Listen, Neil, it's always good to talk to you. Lovely to hear your view. Final word to you, Albie. What do you think? Final word.
Final word is, I think it's wrong for Prince Charles to be commenting on issues of the government. It makes the state look dysfunctional, but the Rwanda policy is quite hard line, so I can understand why he has a private opinion on it, and perhaps a negative one.
Right, OK. Well, today I'm asking, should the royals weigh in on immigration policy? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. Vincent says, then put your money where your mouth is and build and fund some camps or housing at Sandringham, Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle or Balmoral. Exactly, here. Elizabeth says royals should stay neutral on everything. That's why everyone loves our Queen. They should keep opinions to themselves. Also agree about working from home. It's a nightmare trying to get through to most companies now. It was bad enough before, but much worse now. Angela has said Charlie boy is once again helping the Republican movement. Maybe he doesn't want to be king. He's going the right way about abolishing the monarchy. Potentially. I mean, he's annoying a load of people. Richard says the royals are free to express their opinion, as everyone is, but given their position, political or controversial opinions should be and remain confidential. And finally, Simon says part of the deal of having a royal family is that they stay out of politics or it just won't work. Well, there is a poll up right now as well on Twitter throughout the show asking, should royals weigh in on immigration policy? And currently, what percentage do you think say yes? Take a guess, Christine, what do you think?
What? Say yes, they should?
Yeah.
Oh, 10%.
What do you think, Albie? Without looking, don't cheat.
I've already seen it now,
right,
unfortunately.
Oh. 8%. 8%. Only 8% of you say yes. 92% of you say no, they shouldn't. Fabulous stuff. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Good afternoon. It's just fast approaching 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now, it is time for our Great British Debate. And is it the government's job, what do you think, to tell us what to eat? Now, there's a recent government review that's recommended that it should introduce a new salt and sugar tax in England when it announces its food strategy next week. The government commissioned an independent review of the food system led by Leon restaurant chain founder Henry Dimbleby, and he recommended the tax to encourage manufacturers to reduce salt and sugar in food to improve people's health. And, of course, that wasn't one of the only things that came out of the report. But as the cost of living bites and food becomes more expensive, is this the right time to introduce taxes? And which obviously would be passed on, especially as we're all struggling and tax seems to be going up. Let's see what my panel make of that. Is this the right time to do that? And should the government actually be micromanaging what we eat? Right, let's speak to my panel. I'm joined now by Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona, And also Christine Hamilton, author. And what else do you do, Christine? You've got loads of things on your title there.
Yeah, I mean, author, it's
Okay.
kind of you to call me an author. I have written 2 books, but not for a long time, and I have no intention of writing another. But, I mean, technically I am an author, but it always sounds a bit strange to hear myself described as
No, but you are. So, well, we've
yeah.
got your media personality. That's sort of slightly
Well,
vague, though. You do lots of other
I'm
things.
just a media butterfly, that's what I am.
So what do you think, then?
Well, I think the government should keep its nose out of people's business. This is the nanny state gone mad. What I think we should do, I mean, yes, people should eat less salt and sugar, and that's what we try and do, but people need educating in all that. What happened to domestic science at school? How do children get taught how to cook fresh food? No, they don't. They think that food comes in a box and it's delivered by a man dressed as a kangaroo. They don't understand how to do proper food. One of the campaigns that the government did do, which I thought was successful because it wasn't taxing or anything, was 5 a day. And that,
but there's no science to that at all. I mean, there was just
no, but it does at least say to people that an apple is a good thing and have this and colourful foods. That, I think, was worth doing. But no, I think this is an absolute nonsense. And as you said, this isn't going to be a tax on companies who are buying the sugar and the salt in the first place. They're going to trickle it all down and it'll be a tax on people. And it's a regressive tax because it doubly regressive because it hits the people at the bottom of the income scale more because they spend a bigger proportion of their income on food, and now is not the time to do it when people are desperately struggling.
OK, Albie, what do you think?
I think this is it's a tricky tightrope which the government are walking along at the moment, because obviously, we've got a Conservative government in power. We don't really agree with raising taxes, but we have obviously raised corporation tax, we've raised national insurance contributions, and so we're saying we don't want to rise this sugar and salt tax, even though it might be a good thing, but at the same time we're raising taxes in other areas. So that's a bit confusing. But there is a huge problem with obesity in this country, and there's a huge problem coming for the NHS. I think in a couple of decades' time, people are predicting that there could be 40% of British adults being obese. And a lot of that, yes, it does come to personal responsibility. People need to make better choices when it comes to their food. But also, in difficult times, when children are causing lots of problems and they want food, they see a packet of sweets at a till, the parents might just want to buy it for them so that they're quiet. So there's a lot of temptation,
You haven't
and
got
that's
kids,
the
have you?
problem.
You haven't got kids?
No, I don't.
I have. What
Not yet.
you described is exactly what happens. My life goes, ah! Then he goes, and he's lovely. You think, what a cute thing. And then he goes, I want that thing. And literally like a monster. And then you have to get that thing. Otherwise, unfortunately, they'll be crying all the time.
Well, of course, supermarkets deliberately, they put things at the till to tempt us, never mind the children. And they put all the sweets are at child's eye level. Apparently, the reason why Prince Louis misbehaved and was so wonderfully entertaining over the Jubilee weekend was because they'd been fed quite a lot of sweets to sort of, keep them going. But no, I just think people should be educated, they should be encouraged, etc., etc. But I really do not want the government meddling in what I eat. And by the way, you're absolutely right that obesity is horrendous and it's rising and the figures are going to be off the scale. But it is a fact that fat people die younger, so they actually don't end up costing the NHS that much more
that's okay
necessarily.
then. Let's let them carry on then.
It's not okay, but it is a fact when you're talking about the cost of it.
Yeah, well,
They're not going to need care homes.
But then during that time as well, that they may suffer more health issues, so then they'll be using the services more. Look, I really genuinely think that the government should be really just back out of this sort of thing. I actually think if they're serious about it, then they could deal with manufacturers, they could deal with promotion and making it easier for our farmers in this country. There are so many things. I mean, Boris is setting up this strategy. It's sort of a grow for Britain type of strategy, and he's aiming to help farmers and encouraging them to produce more fruit and vegetables and things like that. They're also going to have a vegan option on meals as well, which is fine. But vegan options aren't necessarily healthier. I mean, I know people talk about it. There's a lot of omega-6 in the product, so they use a lot of sunflower oils and things like that cause inflammation. So it's not even the best strategy.
But subsidise the healthy food rather than taxing the unhealthy.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Why not that way around? And everyone says, there's not enough information out there. Tam said that people aren't educated. But people are educated. If you want your latest iPhone, you go on your phone, you find the most up-to-date thing, and everyone's researching and researching. People could be doing and are doing that if they want about food.
I think that two things need to happen. I think the government should actually follow the example of the Portuguese government, who have actually recently reduced the sugar and salt content in a lot of food in Portugal by 11% by actually working with the food associations and the manufacturers to actually bring that content down. But then we also need, I think, proper home economics to be brought back in schools.
Absolutely.
So that children are taught
Domestic
what to be
science.
cooking, how to cook, where food is coming from, and what a healthy diet looks like, so that they grow up as adults that are going to be healthy and not become obese.
You're 100% right. If they were taught how to cook, instead of being taught all this woke nonsense, which is cluttering up.
God.
Well, it's cluttering up the curriculum, and they're not taught the basics of living well, which surely ought to be more important.
Precisely.
Well, let's see what our Great British Voice thinks, because this show's nothing without one of those. So this opportunity is, of course, to be part of the show. Tell us what you think about the topics we're discovering. Where should we go? Should we go to London, Ian? Let's go to London. Let's have a chat with Chris Davis. Let's find out what he thinks about it. Chris, welcome to the show. So what do you think?
Hello.
The government micromanaging what we eat, is that where they should be?
No, not at all. And I'm all in favour of nutrition being taught in schools rather than critical race theory. So I'm in agreement with your panel on that. This is not an issue for government. It's an issue for parents. It's also an issue for teachers, if they want to start teaching children again about importance of nutrition. But Nana, people laboured under the misapprehension that a low-fat diet was good for them, and there's now scientific evidence that suggests otherwise. There are plenty of places to get information on nutrition from. I know you're much more learned and qualified on this than I am, but the chap that was on earlier on, Tam from the National Obesity Forum, I'm not quite sure what planet he's on, but when it comes to real life, real world, people make choices. They may not be the choices that the government likes, but I don't go to McDonald's thinking, oh, I'll have a lovely, healthy, nutritious burger and chips. I know I'm eating junk food. And in terms of the affordability of food, if you go to the market when food is in season, and let's say you buy 10 cobs of sweet corn for £1, alternatively, you go to the supermarket and you buy 2 cobs for £2.50. If people are taught to cook seasonally, you can actually eat very cheaply. Now, exactly. I'm not going to go completely down the Lee Anderson route, but I don't altogether disagree with what Lee said either. I think his intentions were good, and obviously blown up by the media on the left, who just wanted to beat him over the head with it.
Chris, well, thank you for your eloquent thoughts as ever. That is Chris Davis. He's there in London with his thoughts on whether the government should be telling us what to eat if it's their job. But I've been asking, what do you think? Is it their job? Let's see what you've been saying. Kay says, no, our government shouldn't tell us what to eat. I don't tell Boris how many kids he can have. Very good. Jamin says, that's a round of applause for that one. Jamin says, governments and campaigners are always eager to punish people for eating the wrong things, instead of putting the tax they make into encouraging people to eat healthy foods. That's what we were saying, isn't it? Tom says, although Tam says they could probably do both. Tom says it's not up to the government to tell us what we can eat and can and can't eat. Surely it's down to the amount of food we stuff down our faces. Parents should take responsibility. Sugar and salt are not to blame. It's true, isn't it? It's the hands that pick up the food that put the food in the mouth. Colin says it's not the government's job to dictate to the public what we eat. I personally would just add salt and sugar to my food at the table. Mind your own business and stay out of my life. Well, there you go. Right, well, listen, I'm going to move on to this now. Hands up at home, please do this. Hands up if you share a bed with someone. These two, let's see if these two are going to... No, I'm pleased to say... hands up. I'm pleased to say that my hand is firmly down, thank God. It was once one of the most annoying things that I've ever had the misfortune to do. And when I got to a friend's house, when I go to friends' houses, I'm so nosy, I always like to look around and see the rooms and everything. And when I see a double bed there that many couples share, I think to myself, my God, are the two of you really sleeping together on that? Well, you can't do the cartoon running legs, you know, the thing when you run or the starfish. But apparently, research says that sharing a bed promotes longer, more restful sleep, and it's linked to lower depression, anxiety and stress, and a better satisfaction in life. Christine, I'm going to come to you. You're in a very healthy relationship. You've been in there for many, many years.
Don't remind me.
I presume you share a bed. I'm not...
Well, yeah, of course, but I mean, I don't agree with all of that. I mean, yes, a sort of nice little cuddle at night just before you drift off to sleep is good. On the other hand, when you can't get to sleep because they've already fallen to sleep and they're snoring, and then they move around and then they take all the duvets. So it's kind of horses for courses. I'm having a new knee on Tuesday, and I have no intention of sharing a bed with anybody for quite a long time afterwards. I want the whole thing to myself. I find that difficult to believe, that it just depends, frankly.
Albie, what do you think?
I think it's probably the same as most things. I think when the relationship's good, obviously it's going to be lovely to share a bed with someone and you might sleep much better next to them. But if you're loathing your partner on the brink of divorce, it might be the worst thing possible to have to share a bed with them. You can't wait until the divorce is settled and you've got your own house. So I think it's probably a bit more nuanced than this study is making out.
And you think, I mean, I couldn't think of anything worse than sharing a bed with someone. I love my own space and that bed, do the starfish dance. I mean, I used to, when I shared a bed with someone, I found it most irritating. They'd wake me up at night, make noise, all sorts of things. I mean, it's just not good. I don't understand how people get a good night's sleep in a shared bed. It doesn't make any sense.
I think you get a better night's sleep on your own.
Exactly. So we say poo-poo to this research. Right, now it's time for our quick-fire quiz. It's the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. If you just tuned in, I'm joined by media personality and writer Christine Hamilton, and also political commentator and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Now, they've both got a buzzer.
Oh, dear.
Christine, can you buzz your buzzer? Let's hear it. And Albie, buzz your buzzer. Fabulous.
What is this for?
OK, please play along at home. Question 1. A new Harvard study has found... And just the rules of the engagement, you haven't played this before. Don't answer without buzzing. If you do, you'll be disqualified. You cannot answer. All right. A new Harvard survey has found that being an optimist can make you live longer. But by how many years? Is it A, 1 year, B, more than 4, or C, more than 10 years? Christine?
Well, I haven't got a clue, but let's go for 10 years.
Albie, what do you think?
I was going to go for 10 years as well.
Well, let's see if you're
You have
right.
10, I'll go for 4 or whatever.
No, the answer is B. It's too much. You should have done that.
I did it just in time.
Milqua. No, you don't get anything. I can only accept your first answer. That's the other rule. Right, question number 2. A piano Princess Margaret gave to her toy boy, Love Roddy Llewellyn, is up for sale. But how much is the instrument set to fetch at auction? The nearest guess wins.
Oh, we don't get a choice?
No, you just do your buzzer in first. Albie.
£500,000.
£500,000. Christine.
Well,
I don't want to disqualify.
It depends whether it's a clanky old upright or a Steinway or whatever, but 500,000, let's go for 300,000.
£300,000. Let's see if you're right. £7,000. Christine, who was the nearest? Was
Chris,
I was,
definitely.
but by a long way out.
Albie was way off. I don't know what he's doing for 500 grand.
It all depends how much the Princess Margaret connection is worth.
Right, all right, let's go to the next question. Question 3. Which animals have been trained to carry microphone backpacks into earthquake zones to rescue teams? So rescue teams can talk to survivors. Is it A, cats? Is it B, macaque monkeys? Or is it C, rats? Christine?
No idea, rats.
She says it's rats. Albie?
I was going to go with rats, but I'll go with cats.
The answer is rats, Christine. You're doing well, very good.
Well, you were right too.
Well, we've got two left. What do you think? Do you think that that's a nice idea, rats going to the rescue zone to...
Yes, if it works. Yeah.
At least it gives them something to do.
The rats get a bad press. They're not all wholly bad. They have their good points.
Really?
There's one.
There's just that one. Right, OK, question 4. A Californian woman found cash hidden in a free sofa that she got online. How many dollars did she find? Nearest guess wins. Albie?
$10,000.
$10,000. Christine?
$10,000.
You can't say the same thing.
I thought you said 20.
No, I said
Oh, well,
10.
20 then.
$20,000. Let's see what the answer is. The answer is $36,000, Christine.
Wow.
So well.
But surely the big question is, did she give it back?
Yeah, would you... If you
Wow.
found that money in a safe, would you give it back?
I think I would probably keep it.
What would you, Christine?
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, you know, when I'm on television, of course I give it back. But, you know, when I'm in the privacy of my own home and you find it, I wonder whose money it actually was. It could have been... It might not be the person you got the sofa from. It could be the person before.
Well, would you give it back?
Never.
Come on, answer the question.
I think we'd better say yes. Yes, of course we would.
There's no way on earth I'd give it back. I'd just keep my mouth shut and take it quietly and laugh. Right, your fifth and final question. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has blasted fast food chain KFC for using which ingredients in its burgers as the price of lettuce skyrockets? Is it A, cabbage? Is it B, cauliflower? I must also finish the question, Christine. I will let you off this time. I didn't include that in the rules. Or is it C, carrots? OK. Albie.
I think it must be cabbage.
You think it's cabbage?
What else would it be?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say cabbage, but let's be different. I'll say cauliflower.
You think it's cauliflower? Well, let's have a look at the answer. The answer is...
Cabbage.
Cabbage! Well done. All right, well, listen, are we scoring? If we're on a draw, I'll give you a final. I'll give you a throwaway question, but please don't throw it away. OK, final question. An advert for which range of Tesco products has been banned for being misleading about their environmental benefit? Is it A, household cleaning, B, plant-based foods, or C, bamboo clothing? Christine?
The first one, the cleaning products.
The cleaning product. Albie, what was... Press your button.
Is it bamboo clothing?
Bamboo clothing. Let's see. The answer is... It's B, plant-based food. Nothing. That last point was a throwaway. They threw it away. Christine, you won 3-1. Everybody, give Christine a round of applause. First time she's done the quiz. Albie, you were useless. You know
I would say that's the worst I've ever done it.
It is pretty bad.
Oh, dear.
Honestly, really bad. But hopefully you did better than these two at home. Right, well, on today's show, we've been asking, should royals weigh in on the immigration policy? According to our Twitter poll, what percentage, Christine? Take a guess.
What percentage thinks they should not?
They should or shouldn't. It's up to you.
The percentage that think they should wade in, I would say, is 10%.
Albie?
Should wade in, let's go with 7%.
It's 11.4%, so you wouldn't have got the 0.4. 11.4% said yes, they should wade in, and 88.6% of you said no, they should not. Well, I'm going to say a huge thank you to my fabulous panel, media personality and political commentator Christine Hamilton. Christine, thank you so much.
Where's author gone?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. And also co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And as ever,